First of all, welcome everyone on behalf of a kind of broad coalition of folks that are concerned about what's happening in Congress this morning, particularly the impact on the Inflation Reduction Act. Once again, to introduce myself, my name is Frank Houston. I'm the boots on the ground here in Michigan for the Blue Green Alliance. If you don't know us, we are an organization that unifies labor unions and environmental organizations into a powerful force, working for an economy that fights for climate change, protects the health of people and environment, stands against economic and racial inequity and inequality, and creates and maintains good paying union jobs in communities across the country, including here in Michigan. We're here obviously today because of the action going on specifically tied to the IRA. I think most folks here have heard this before, but I think it's pretty clear that the unfortunate revisions that the Congress and President are moving forward on, or I should say the Republicans in Congress are moving forward with, will increase costs for working families by repealing clean energy investments at a time when energy costs and utility bills are already rising here in Michigan. This bill will clearly kill jobs, including more than 25,000 good paying jobs here in Michigan. And it will reverse real climate progress that we've been able to take, not just in Michigan, but across the country. I don't want to go too long because I want to get to the Congresswoman, but basically there's a broad coalition of folks here and that I'll introduce after the Congresswoman speaks. But we're deeply concerned about the direction the President and Republicans in Congress are going, and sounding the alarm of the impacts to come for us here on the ground in Michigan. With that, I want to introduce Congresswoman Dingell. I know she probably doesn't need a big introduction, but I think it's worth saying that she's been a tireless advocate fighting inflation and keeping costs down for Michigan's families in a tough environment for that, especially with what the actions the president's been taking. She's also been a strong advocate for addressing climate change. And I think what's noteworthy is she's done so really working in partnerships with Michigan workers and frontline community members. And she's just frankly one of the first people to step in when there's a tough issue and pull together a broad coalition of people to really work together on solutions and not just identifying problems. So I think everyone here was very appreciative that the Congresswoman's making time today, and I want to turn it over to my good friend, Congresswoman Dingell.
Thank you, Frank. And I'm telling you all.
Oh, Congresswoman, you broke up.
Floor where we've been. Can you hear me now? I'm going to turn my camera off. Does that help at all?
I think it probably does. Although we'd love to see your face, Congresswoman. I think it might work.
Okay, I'm in the cloakroom off the House floor where we've had the morning. So, and at the moment, Democrats are winning because there are 50-some Republicans missing. But anyway, I'm saying morning, not good morning, because it's not a good morning. Because we're considering a bill today that I call Donald Trump's big, bad bill. And why would anyone support this big, bad bill? But this bill that we're looking at voting today, that I'm praying will defeat, destroying jobs, reversing years of clean energy advancements, exacerbate the climate crisis, and making communities more vulnerable, resilient. And why? Because we want to break the oil and gas billionaires. In the Inflation Reduction Act, we prioritize lowering energy costs for families. This big bad bill will undo all the progress by reducing cheaper clean energy sources. Studies show that and this is independent studies, these are independent studies, show that it would increase the average family's energy bill by $110 next year and as much as $400 per year by 2035. Not only, and let's be clear, this is a Republican rate hike, increased costs for families, but it's also going to create an energy supply shortage, making us more reliant on foreign oil and putting our energy grid at risk again. We already know the Department of Energy ordered a coal plant to stay opened in Michigan because they were worried about whether there'd be a shortage of energy supply for the Midwest. So what we're doing is making the energy supply worse, not better. And what is also going to happen is that this bill will result in the loss of good paying union jobs in the construction industry by rolling back critical clean energy investment to secure. Also, in the Inflation Reduction Act, congressional Democrats created new groundbreaking labor standards for it's focused on spurring investments in clean energy projects around the country. We established prevailing wage and apprenticeship utilization bonuses in these clean energy credits to ensure that the solar farms and wind turbines of tomorrow are constructed with union labor today. These credits have not only spurred the creation of new, clean, affordable energy, but they've created tens of thousands of new jobs for electricians, metal workers, welders, and other workers in high paying jobs with training and apprenticeships to build the pipeline of workers for the next generation. As of May, $522 billion of outstanding investment has been announced across 2,217 clean energy facilities, which is expected to create more than 680,000 operational and construction jobs. And now, my friends, all of those jobs, all of those jobs are at risk. This bill will bring our momentum as a global leader in technology and clean energy innovation to a grinding halt. And I just want to say something. 100 years ago, Germany led the world in innovation and technology. We do right now, but we are giving it up to China, and I'll be damned if we will ever give up our leadership. We have got to fight to keep it. We're going to lose the significant prosperity and leadership we've worked so hard. Tax on clean energy in the first quarter of 2025 have already more than in clean energy jobs, and more. Many of these jobs and investments will instead flow overseas to our competitors. Now, before I leave there, I'm a car girl. You all know that. Michigan's an auto state. We put the world on wheels. I'm to China, our leadership. He's eliminating the never, ever, ever want to agree with Musk on anything. But even he is noting on how bad this bill is. And our domestic auto industry needs to be a global leader. The world wants it. Donald Trump may decide, oh, it's a buzzword not to like EVs. If we don't want to destroy our domestic auto industry, we've got to be competing and selling product global marketplace. I just had to make that point. It will also make our air and water dirtier, and it'll increase in pollution. The increase in pollution will mean higher deaths and more cases of asthma and cancer, particularly among children and the elderly. Oh, by the way, as I'm saying this bill also kicks off 17 million people off their health care insurance and is an increase millions more people health. So let's make them sicker and take away their health care. This bill is I'm sorry, it's a bullshit bill, and I'm going to say it. While the bill increases the pollutants entering our air and water, it cuts funding for air pollution monitoring for schools in low income and disadvantaged communities. This is a big, ugly bill. It's bad for our economy, bad for families, it's bad for workers, and let us be clear, it's bad for Michigan. So until the last vote, they don't have the votes
Oh, you
right
broke
now.
up there,
Our job,
Congresswoman.
they don't, I'm going to close, but they don't have the votes right now. Let's not let them. Let's educate voters in Michigan about why this bill should not be supported. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And I appreciate the words and the passion there. We definitely need it right now. And I think it's worth noting that, when this action was going underway yesterday, there was already folks showing up at congressional offices, including near me, Congressman James's office, making it clear how we feel about it here on the ground in Michigan. Just one quick housekeeping item I want to note for our members of the press is that there is the Q&A function. As I know many of you have been through this before with these webinar style Zoom pressers, but there is the Q&A function, which we'll work through after our next couple speakers go. So please don't be shy about using that function to submit questions to the panelists and our broader group, which will give folks an opportunity to recognize at the end. So with that, I want to just quickly introduce our speakers that are going to join us here as panelists today. First, Chad Sarowski, who's the Michigan AFL-CIO Communication Director. We have also Ann Siegel, who's a homeowner who's taken advantage of some of the provisions of the IRA. And then, excuse me, we also have Lisa De Bueno, who's an MD, so call her doctor, please. And she's the founder and board chair of Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action. With that, I want to turn it over to Chad to offer some remarks.
Thank you, Frank. And as Congresswoman Dingell said, bad morning to everyone. My name is Chad Sarowski, and I'm the communications director at the Michigan AFL-CIO. We're Michigan's largest labor organization, representing 40 different labor groups, 18 different central labor councils, and 8 constituency groups that represent, in total, over 1 million active and retired union members and their families. Simply put, the big bad bill puts workers last and billionaires first. It cuts healthcare. It cuts food assistance. It steals from the working class to give to the rich. And it's a clean energy job killer. You've heard other people say this, but this bill will kill 39 billion in investment and over 25,000 jobs, clean energy jobs in Michigan alone, which slows our progress and sets our state's clean energy progress back. And these jobs we're talking about aren't theoretical. These are real shovel-ready jobs, and they pay very well. Good paying jobs that our affiliates like the IBEW, the UAW, the Michigan Laborers, and a lot of others benefit from and are excited about. So what kinds of jobs are these? These are workers building and maintaining solar farms, workers building and maintaining wind farms, the EV charging infrastructure. Congresswoman Dingell said that, we put the world on wheels previously, and we'd like to do that again. EV is going to be a critical component of that. And then, of course, labor is laying the foundation for all of this clean energy future, building the roads, the bridges, everything that makes this possible. And at the end of the day, it's really hard for our members to plan for their future when they don't know when their next job or when or where their next job is going to come from. The investments that were done through the Inflation Reduction Act really helped provide security for them. And one thing we want to make clear is that the value of any policy, like a temporary tax break on tips or overtime, is going to be more than wiped out by higher healthcare and energy costs, or even worse, lost jobs altogether. The big bad bill rips away critical federal investments that are revitalizing Michigan's infrastructure, especially in the communities that have been hardest hit by offshoring and plant closures. Instead of standing with workers, Trump and Republicans are standing with billionaires. This bill protects profits, not people. Michigan's labor movement believes in a just transition that puts workers first, where union jobs, climate action, and economic justice go hand in hand. That's what these clean energy incentives make possible, but this big bad bill is a job killer. We're calling on lawmakers in the House to reject this job-killing, anti-worker, anti-union, anti-Michigan budget bill and work on a budget that puts workers first, not last. Thank you for your time, and I'll pass it to Ann.
Hi, thank you, everybody. So I am Ann Siegel. My family and I installed solar on our roof 2 years ago, and it has been terrific. We actually produce enough solar to send it back to the grid. And in fact, we signed a cogeneration agreement with the Board of Water and Light, which is our local utility company. So we actually provide power to our neighbors in addition to ourselves. So my utility bill last month for Board of Water and Light was $9. And it was $20 the month before. And the only reason why it was $20 is because we had a franchise fee. So it has been huge for us. We took advantage of the tax savings. We got 30% back on our following year taxes because of it. And it has been really tremendous for us. One of the things we feel really strongly about from a climate perspective, I have kids, is that we have to give them a better future. We need more power right now, not less in Michigan. And homeowners like me can sell that back to the grid. So it really works out well for everybody. It's just devastating what's going to happen with this bill. And I think two of the guys that came and installed my solar, every guy that was on my roof, really super nice guys coming into the house, getting water, whatever, those guys were all young men having good jobs right here in Lansing with a locally owned company. It is just going to be devastating for them and for other people like them who work in the solar industry here in Michigan. I can't say enough about how bad this bill is going to be for the climate and what we're taking away from our kids' future, my kids' future. It's just a bad, bad bill. And I just want to just say a little note to Tom Barrett, who's my congressman. Um, Tom just is selling us out. He is. He's selling us out. He and everyone else, all the Republicans in Michigan, are selling us out. It's just a terrible thing. So I hope that this bill does not pass for so many reasons, but just in particular for this one, we've got to think about our future and for our kids.
I
Thank
think
you,
I'm up.
Ann. Yeah, Lisa, you're up. Thanks,
Okay,
Doctor.
great. So I'll wish everybody a bad morning as well, but let's turn this around if we can. My name is Dr. Lisa Del Bono. I'm a retired doctor who practiced diagnostic pathology for 30 years right here in Michigan. I'm also the founder and board chair of Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action. We're a coalition of practitioners and public health professionals from across the state advocating for climate solutions, which are health solutions. I'm really grateful to everybody who's here today, the press, my colleagues, and especially Representative Dingell, for drawing attention to everything that's at risk right now as Congress debates this big bad bill. Simply put, this bill has the potential to be devastating to both the environment and healthcare. As health experts agree, climate change is the greatest threat to human health. Michigan health professionals are seeing the impacts of climate change in our offices and clinics today. And it's just common sense and scientific consensus that healthy foods, clean energy and water, or clean air and water, and green space are critical to protecting human health. Unfortunately, many of the funds that were set forth in the last administration to help us transition to cleaner forms of energy, more resilient farming, and electrify our homes and transportation are currently on the chopping block. Thanks to the IRA and the state's new clean energy laws, Michigan communities were leading the way. We were replacing dirty fossil fuels with less expensive and more reliable wind and solar. We were replacing diesel school buses and gas cars, which pollute the air and worsen a myriad of health conditions, with electric vehicles made in Michigan. Simply put, the changes afforded by the IRA were on track to save billions in healthcare dollars right away, while at the same time making energy more affordable and dependable and slowing the progression of climate change. When someone we love is in need of health care, we want the latest and most advanced care possible. Historically, the U.S. has led the world in cutting-edge research and medical treatments, in large part because of the National Institute of Health, or NIH. But funding to the NIH is under threat, and that means less money for cancer research, research for difficult-to-treat conditions such as autoimmune disease, autism, and Alzheimer's, to name just a few. But potentially the most devastating cuts in this bill, at least from a practitioner's point of view, but from really everybody's point of view, are those directed towards healthcare access. It is estimated that the cuts in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act will cost at least $11.8 million of our most vulnerable people. They will lose access to health care. And these cuts have real life implications to healthcare systems and to our most vulnerable neighbors and friends, people with disabilities, low income children, and some seniors. While I'm not an expert in medical building or hospital administration, as a practitioner, I can say that these cuts will mean a delay in diagnosis and a delay in treatment for many people. For example, it will mean people won't be diagnosed with high blood pressure until they have a stroke. Their cancer won't be diagnosed until it has spread too far to cure. And patients will ration their diabetes medicines and end up in the ER with life-threatening infections and kidney failure. Delaying treatment like this will put added pressure on healthcare systems, many of which are already struggling financially post-COVID. And for rural hospitals already operating on a reduced budget, these cuts mean the difference between keeping the doors open and permanent closure, at least for some of those hospitals, potentially leaving entire communities without access to health care. Our patients, your loved ones, our neighbors, we deserve better. So in short, this big bill is anything but beautiful. If passed, it has the potential to be devastating to both our environment and healthcare. We can do better than this, and we have to. Thanks. Back to you, Frank.
Thanks, Doctor. I appreciate the comments. And I do want to take a moment to give some examples of the projects we're talking about too that would be at risk with the gutting of the IRA that we're talking about today. And I'll just say on a macro level, it's been said, but this bill clearly rewards billionaires over workers and homeowners in Michigan. This legislation, prioritizes the billionaire class over working people in so many ways, selling out jobs and, frankly, for an ultra rich handout to Donald Trump and his wealthy friends. And it's a shameless screw over of working people and a disgrace. But it also takes a sledgehammer, more specifically, to Michigan's competitiveness and America's competitiveness in the growing global markets that we actually have been making progress in. And it's kneecapping these sectors that are just now gaining speed for us in the global clean economy. And, candidly, our manufacturing projects that we've seen explosive growth in Michigan because of both our in-state leadership and the support provided through the IRA. Since the tax incentives were put in place in 2002, there's just several projects that are at risk. To name a few that I think most folks here are well aware of, Ford has obviously invested a lot of time and resources, as has our state, in the Blue Oval project in Marshall, Michigan, which was over $2.5 billion in private investments, coupled with the incentives in IRA from 45X, 48C, and 30D tax credits. That's an obvious one for that battery facility. That's a core part of how we position Michigan for those auto jobs and EV jobs of the future. We also have the LG plant that's in Holland, Michigan, that's expected to create 2,300 jobs and has a private investment of over $5.9 billion, which once again also is benefiting from 45X, 48C, and the 30D tax credits. And we also have the Lansing Grand River Assembly Plant, which many of you, I think, were part of the announcement when former governor and then Secretary Granholm came in to announce, where, frankly, a lot of support through conversion grants and other federal resources through the IRA, specifically under 48C and 30D brought in, coupled with $881 million in private investment, was expected and hopefully still is expected to create 700 jobs at a plant. And as someone just personally who came back home to Michigan, a little over 20 years ago now, and saw those jobs in Lansing at risk and the impact on the community in a tough recession at the time, and then seeing the opportunity to put people back to work and being at that event where those grants were announced in Lansing, it is a stark contrast of priorities from one administration to the next. And also, I think people on the ground can see that impact and are going to feel it. Sorry, so I don't mean to go on and on, but there's countless examples of how this bill is bad for Michigan. I want to open it up for some Q&A and just want to thank everyone for making time today. And I'm going to try to navigate through the Q&A here. And I see that we have Zach from Political here. So I'm going to try to do this first question. And Justin, please redirect me if I'm not posting it right. Let me see here. Basically, the question is, the hope of the IRA was that it would prove resilient to rollbacks and it would put facts on the ground in Republican districts. It says that it doesn't seem to have worked as well as hoped. And if we'll give Congresswoman Dingell an opportunity to weigh back in here now that she's back on screen. But for Congresswoman, if you can hear the question, she basically, Zach from Politico is asking, what have you and the caucus learned from basically the Republican efforts to roll back the IRA, despite the efforts to have Republican districts see the benefits, which we're obviously seeing here in Michigan of IRA and the related investments, and basically how are you going to convert these lessons into a more effective political message?
So Zach, good to see you. You and I are in the same city, I think. Ben, this bill is such a bad bill that there's been a lot of focus on the Medicare provisions, the Medicaid provisions, and SNAP and food, and not enough on the energy. And that's one of the reasons we're doing the press conference today. We've been talking to our Republican colleagues about how energy bills are going to go up. You know, there are other bad things in this bill, like selling public lands, etc. So we are trying to get, you know, I talked about the autos at the very beginning. There are plants in Republican member districts. Buddy Carter has been one of the biggest fighters with try to preserve the EV tax credit. So we need to, I mean, we still have time. We're still trying to educate people about what's in the bill. And I think a lot of people don't understand what the energy provisions are going to do in more than one way. One, how it's going to increase costs for everyday working Americans. And two, the jobs that are going to be created from everything to EVs to building out these plants, building the green jobs of the future, though people hate the word green. So let's talk about how we're going to address environmental issues that are going to kill people. We're trying really hard to get people to understand it, and people in their districts need to raise it, and workers are going to raise it.
Okay, thank you, Congresswoman. And another question came up, which I know you've touched on a little bit, which is basically, can you explain one more time where we're at in the reconciliation process now that the Senate has passed it? And just frankly, what responsibility does the House have now?
So at the moment, we're on the House floor. And just to give you the whole feel of the moment, Hakeem Jeffries is having a press conference with all the Democrats on the Capitol steps, where we are united in opposition to this bill. And there is a parliamentary vote, parliamentary motion that was made that has remained open now for probably close to an hour, because the Freedom Caucus members are at the White House with the president attempting to break their arm. Yes, you may quote me. This vote closes, and you know we don't going to keep it open because I also don't think they have the votes right now. We will move to consideration of the rule, which is the rule under which the bill is considered on the floor. That will be the first test to see how many Republicans vote against the rule. I know of 2 right now, and probably several more. And then there'll be a motion to recommit. When that is done, if the rule passes, then there will be an hour of debate split between the Republicans and the Democrats. But time can take on unique, like we're having a 15-minute vote that we've been in for almost an hour. I think that part of this will go all day because I do not believe they have the votes right now. And President Trump is going to try to break arms to get the votes, and the American people, the constituents, those of you that are talking to people, we need to make sure those voices are heard, and that people that are going to be voting on this today understand they will be held accountable for the damage that they will do this bill. Why would anybody vote for this big bad bill? So that's where we are. It will probably be a long, intense day. And I do believe they do not have the votes at this minute and are working very hard to get the votes. They can only afford to lose 3 votes, 4 votes. So, and we know there are 2 that are decidedly gone. I think there's a 3rd gone. We will see.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I have one more here for that I want to ask real quick, which is it's from Mark Grunberg, which is what will be the impact on environmental cleanups and replacing old infrastructure? And they specifically asked about Flint's water pipes.
Well, I'm very worried about it because, you know, I have one of the districts that has many. I've got Superfund sites. I'm trying to get the plume in. It was, you know, put on the proposed list in the notice of proposed rulemaking. They got so many comments, it wasn't done. And we've got to now. I have talked to the EPA administrator, and he says he wants to continue to do this cleanup work. But I'm very, very, very worried about it. And we don't know how much money is going to be passed in the budget, what their commitment is going to be to it. You know, what are we going to now for Flint specifically? The state, the money came into the state through, they have, my understanding is finished replacing the lead pipes in Flint. But, there is lead in pipes across the country and in many other communities in Michigan. I led that in committee to get the lead out of every pipe in America in the next decade. There was money set aside to do this. I think it needs to be the nation's priority. And I don't think anybody can count on that happening right now. And another reason why people need to make their voices heard. I believe that water is a basic human right, and that every American, I actually think everybody in the world, uh, has a right to safe, clean, affordable drinking water.
Great. Thank you, Congresswoman, for that and your leadership on it. I think that's the questions in the chat. Please feel free to add more to it, folks, as you have them. And I also just want to encourage some of the other folks who joined us in solidarity, that throw your name and organization identity in the chat. Want to lift up a few of them that I know I see here, and pardon anyone I missed, but I know I saw our partners at League of Conservation Voters. I see Bentley there, who helped coordinate this event. I see Tim from Sierra Club and Abby from NRDC and Luke from Climate Power. A few of my friends, including Courtney and Seth from Evergreen Action. So I just wanted to call out a few of the friends that we've seen show up here today in solidarity to support your leadership, Congresswoman, and your advocacy for us today in DC. Just want to open up one last time for any last questions. And then, Congresswoman, if you have any closing remarks that you want to offer, the floor is yours, of course.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I don't know what's going to happen today. I am still, prayers matter. I'm one of those people that prays too. And I am just praying that there are 4 Republicans that understand what the damage will be from this bill. In my many years of being around and 10 years of being in Congress, I do believe this is the worst bill that we have ever been asked to consider. And for those that have been experts for decades, say it is the worst bill that Congress has ever looked at. People are going to die. People are going to be hurt. People are going to lose their jobs. Working families who are already worried about how much everything costs are going to see increased costs. So thank you for caring enough to get on this call. If you really care, you're going to help tell people, call those offices right now and tell them you do not want to see the damage that this bill is going to cause, and ask the question, why would anyone vote for this big, bad bill?
Thank you, Congresswoman. We know that this bill will put working people out of jobs and throw our manufacturing revitalization here underway in Michigan in reverse. And we just, once again, want to say appreciate your leadership, and hopefully we can stop the dangerous course that the GOP members of Congress have taken today with the president. Once again, want to thank all of our panelists, as well as all of our other organizations who've joined in solidarity here today. And we're available if you have future questions, member of the press. Thanks again for attending, and have a better afternoon than we're so far having today.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Thanks,
Bye.
Congressman.